New questions now about Benghazi and whether or not more security could have saved the lives of 4 Americans. Listen to this exchange between Senator Ron Johnson and the Joint Chiefs Chairman, General Martin Dempsey, here.
So I think the assumption would be if we had maybe 16, which means 4 people full-time guards at that consulate, probably that attack never would have occurred.
Well, if you're asking me, would additional security forces have made a difference in any number of ways? The answer is yes, of course.
Okay, well, thank you.
Ron Johnson, the Republican senator, is with me now to talk about that. Sir, good morning to you and welcome back here to America's Newsroom. When you think about that answer, does it lead you anywhere?
Well, that's been my main point all along here is I know people have been interested in the misleading talking points for a couple of weeks. But from my standpoint, the reason this administration was misleading us for a couple of weeks is because they didn't want Americans to really examine and think about the lack of action, the dereliction of duty, the gross negligence that led up to Benghazi. You know, there were repeated requests for security. It was well known that the security situation was deteriorating. And the State Department, in a cable reply that bore Secretary Clinton's signature, basically not only denied the request for additional security, but actually said they were going to proceed with a plan to ramp down security. And, you know, from my standpoint, it's just a shame. There were no fully armed guards, in other words, armed at all times. And I think if that would have happened, if we would have had just 4 armed guards, you know, people that were trained, I don't think the attack ever would have happened. I don't think 4 brave Americans would have lost their lives.
So you were trying to figure out whether or not the security request was made, and then ultimately what happened to that request. Now,
right.
Now, do you know the answer yet?
Well, we certainly know the security requests were made and that they were denied. I mean, that we know. One of the points I was making, because this was a budget hearing, is we had a number of Democrat senators, you know, point to Republicans that, you know, hey, we're cutting the budget, so the State Department didn't have the funds. The fact of the matter is, the Department of Defense, upon request by the State Department, will provide that security. And Bill, we're not talking that many people. A full-time staff of 16 security members would basically, with a full-time shift, would be 4 armed guards at all times. I think would have prevented this attack and saved those lives.
That is one issue, it appears to me. The security questions that maybe was granted who had a hand in that decision. The other issue is whether or not you could have troops come in from Europe, and he disagreed with your timeline as to whether or not troops could respond and get there effectively. So those were the 2 issues you were going for in that hearing. Now, this is what we found in our Fox News polling. Reason why President Obama did not order help in Benghazi that night. A clear majority, 56%, say they did not want to risk an election. This was September 11th. Do you agree with those people?
That might be a possibility. I mean, that's conjecture. But, you know, the other question I was asking is based on a report by Adam Housley from Fox News, where he was talking to somebody from the commander in extremis force based out of Europe, basically saying that force that's at a very high state of readiness could have been in Benghazi in 4 to 6 hours, which actually would have at least saved the additional 2 lives, Glenn Doherty and Tyrone Woods. And, you know, my question is, why didn't we bring assets into Benghazi as soon as possible? Because we had no idea. At the time, nobody knew how long this thing was going to last and what it might have blown up into. So, you know, I really question the decision making. You know, the other question is yet to be answered. Really, is what was President Obama doing during this entire time?
To that point in the decision making, this is what our Fox polling also found out. Could the president or Secretary of State Clinton done more? Again, a clear majority think that both could have done more that night, Senator.
Well, that I agree. I think both of them could have been more engaged. And, you know, if the president would have been more engaged, I think we would know about it. So the fact that we don't know exactly what he was doing kind of speaks volumes, and my guess is he pretty well checked out of this one.
Are you moving the ball forward on this? Are you getting anywhere? I mean, you've been at it for months.
Well, I know, slowly but surely. And unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of questioning here in the Democrat-controlled Senate. So, you know, when I had my opportunity in front of a budget hearing where we had General Dempsey come in front of it, rather than really talk about the budget, I actually did center on questions on Benghazi. Yeah. But it is pretty frustrating being a Republican senator here in the minority. We don't get to call the hearings. That's controlled by the Democrats. Most of the hearing action has to take place in the House, where Republicans control it.
Yeah, I'm going to put your answer down as not quite sure just yet. But we'll be in contact. Senator, thank you.
Okay.
Ron Johnson.
Have a great day.
Thank you, and you as well, Senator. So here you have it. 9 months later, he's still trying to look for answers. I thought that last answer was very telling. He's only getting a little bit of progress right now.
Right, and obviously, according to the polls, the American people are very interested in this issue. And you think back to Greg Hicks' testimony, and you wonder if there are others out there who are willing to come forward about what they know, because there are people who know more about